Hi, and welcome to Heartland Stitches. My name is Vicki, otherwise known as Heartland Knits on Instagram and Ravelry, and today I would like to talk to you about my finished Opium coat by Deer Doe Patterns. So my first make of 2019 is this Opium coat by Deer Doe Patterns. I used this black and white houndstooth for the body of it, and then I used a black velveteen for the inside facing collar and the pockets. I will get up in a minute and show you the whole thing standing up. I did it all as a couture coat, so it is underlined with cotton flannel. I used the kind of cotton flannel that you use for drapery interlining. I had a bunch left from when I made drapes a couple years ago, and then I just had to buy like an extra yard. It is a really wide width, so it worked well for a coat. And then the inside is a flannel backed satin, so it's super warm. I wore this yesterday. I finished it on Friday, and I wore it out just for a little bit yesterday, and it was, I think, 9 degrees Fahrenheit, which is what, like minus 12, 13 Celsius, something like that. And it was really toasty warm. I had a scarf on and everything though. But it's really toasty warm. So let me get up and show it to you. This is the coat. It is about fingertip length, and I love the little pocket, the crisscross pockets. And as suggested in the pattern, I did line the pockets with cotton, so it has secret floral pocket lining. There are things that I love about the coat and things that I'm not so happy with. Not that it's anything of the pattern's fault, just kind of my execution in it. But one thing I'm really happy with is the pattern matching up and down the back, on the sleeve. I'm really happy with how it is, even on the side. It chevrons up nicely. The closure for it, as the pattern, it has these kind of big snaps, kind of like Barbie doll snaps, but larger size ones. And the lining is hot pink, which it just had to be hot pink. I love it so much. So it's really fun to wear. There are things that I love about it and things that I'm just not real happy about. They might look good, okay, from afar, but up close I'm just not satisfied. I missed the mark by a little bit. And like I said, not that it's the pattern's fault, it's kind of my execution. So I knew I wanted to do kind of the trim in this black velveteen. I honestly don't know that I could have gotten, if I had done the pockets in a wool, even the same wool or contrasting wool, I don't know if I could have gotten it underneath my presser foot. The facing is the black velveteen all the way down. What I didn't stop to consider was, I knew I wanted to do the collar in the black velveteen, but what I didn't stop to consider was the difference in thickness between like these, as lapels as compared to the collar, because I just did both pieces of the collar in the velveteen, and it didn't even dawn on me that that would be an issue. So the collar is just thinner and flimsier than sort of the front lapels are. I feel like I should have done the undercollar in the wool, and then that would have provided the same thickness. I realized that when I was kind of sewing this on and sewing the seam allowances down, because I did it all couture, so it's underlined, and I sewed all the seam allowances down to the underlining so they stay nice and flat. And I had enough fabric that I could have gone back and cut that undercolor in the wool and tried to change it, but I was worried because it had already the coating had already been clipped and notched and everything, and it is not a tightly spun wool or a tightly woven wool, so I was just worried if I started to go back and if it started I felt it was secure how it was, but if I started trying to take things apart, that if it started to fray and I got out of control, I wouldn't be able to get things back in place. And I just thought wearable but not perfect is better than trying to go back and make it perfect and then ending up with a coat that I couldn't wear because it had frayed away. So there is that. You live and you learn. And that's one thing I will not redo. I will not forget about that one again. The other thing that is not quite as big of a deal, but I did end up having to lengthen the sleeves. I lengthened them by about 1.5 inches. And because I did it just at the end, because I, did it with the couture, so I had all this extra fabric, and I thought these sleeves are not going to be long enough, and I thought I'm going to lengthen them. So all the lengthening happened just at the end. So they feel a little tight, just kind of right in here, because I didn't kind of do that properly at the length and shorten line when I was cutting out the fabric and changing it. So they feel a little bit tighter. Fabric in the seam allowances that I could have changed that. There was not for the lining. I already had the lining sewn together at that point. So I just made that decision to just leave it as it was. So I think they're not too narrow at the cuff. It's for too long of a time that it's that much longer that they're narrow. I do feel like and having worn it now once, I feel like it could have, I didn't need to, I maybe overestimated the amount I need to lengthen it. I could have gotten by with 1 inch, which is not that much, but I can go back and change that because I didn't bag it out like the instructions called for, because I quite like finishing hems by hand. I know I'm a weirdo. But it just kind of is a way to sort of say goodbye to the project, and I quite enjoy that. So I can easily change that. I did have, because I lengthened the sleeves, I did have to sew an extension onto the lining, which was kind of a pain in the butt, but I can always make the sleeves a little bit shorter if I want to. The pattern was very well written. This is the second coat that I've done. I made the Gertie McCall's Gertie coat last year, and I followed her sew along on her blog, and I used the same kind of interfacing that I used for that coat. So even though the collar is it's flimsier, it has really nice interfacing. It's from the Fashion Sewing Supply in New York. If you're in the US and you don't know about them, I will put a link to them down below. I found out about them when I was doing that following the sew along, because that's what she said that she used, and then I ordered some and I got some, and all of their interfacing is very nice quality. So I feel like the instructions were really easy to follow. I had never done welt pockets before, and they do have a couple of blog entries about, I think there was one on the pockets, one on the collar, and one on something else. But you wouldn't really need that. I didn't feel like I could have gotten by without them. Though it was nice when you're doing the welt pockets and before you're cutting your fabric, it's nice to just double check, on their blog post with actual pictures as opposed to just the illustrations from the pattern, that yes, you have it set up correctly. It's going to be fine. And the welt pockets went in, except for the thickness of them, of sewing through all those layers. And I did do it a little bit more tentatively than they called for. They just had you line everything up and then sew it down, where I kind of lined up the kind of pocket, the outer little pocket piece, and basted that down, and then the inside pocket bag piece, and I basted that down so that and then sewed it all down so that I just felt like it was not going to move anywhere. I just wanted to make sure I got it like really secure and everything. And but Yeah, I think it was an easier coat to put together than the McCall's Gertie coat last year. So if you're looking for a first coat pattern, I would recommend this. I think it's quite good. If you didn't have to match plaid, it would go like super fast because you could just kind of zip up those seams. So yeah, it was a really fun project to work on. I love the pink lining inside. It had to be pink. So yeah, I think the black velveteen might be the bane of my existence with this coat because it's picking up sort of all the lint. To get busy and knit something new to wear with this coat because as a scarf, because all my little crescent shawls and things that I usually wear with coats are either have angora or mohair or alpaca, something lofty that's going to make this black velvet pick up all the lint. But I think it's worth it. I love the contrast in it, and if it wasn't for the collar, I would be over the moon happy with it. But it's wearable and it's warm, and like I said, you live, you learn. Next time, something tells me by the end of this sewing journey, I am going to be knowing about pad stitching and all of those very serious tailoring sort of things. But for now, I'm really happy, and I do recommend the Opium coat. Is so fun to like walk around and wear. It's very swingy, very kind of Mrs. Maisel. I hope you enjoyed that kind of brief look at my experience with this coat, and stop back next week for another episode. Please do remember to give me a thumbs up if you like the video, and do subscribe. And until I see you another time, from my heart to yours, happy sewing!